the first half of the section of requests is all personal, right? And we went through and we did the first half of that half, right, was more spiritual, right? We had the asking for the knowledge and the slach lanu and hashivenu, right? And that was a spiritual request for us as individuals. And then we got to the physical requests for us as individuals, right? And that was re'ina, right, rifa'inu. And now we're up to barech alinu. Okay, barech alinu sometimes seems a little bit distant from us, right? We're asking Hashem to give us rain, and we're not farmers. So I'm not sure how much, we really feel when there's, if there's not enough rain, do we really feel it, right? And I remember there was one time when we were told we were going to have a water, it wasn't a shortage, it was a water outage. They were working on the water pipes, whatever, in my yishuv for 8 hours. 8 hours is a long time without water. So, we were like filling up buckets and bottles of water and bathtubs of water, like just because we said, we're going to need it for so many different things. We want to make sure, just to flush the toilet even, right? So we wanted to make sure we had enough water. And beyond that minor discomfort, we suddenly realized, I was thinking about it with my kids and I was like, we take water for granted. It's something that we always have. And in past generations, in order to get their water for every single thing they needed, they had to go down to the well or down to the water and bring back buckets, and it was a real thing. But today we don't feel that, right? I mean, we don't really think about, farmers do. Farmers think all the time if there's not enough rain, their crops aren't growing, but we don't think about it. We just go to the sink, turn on the water, go to the grocery store. We don't need to worry about crops. There's all our vegetables and fruits are there. Everything works. But the commentaries explain that the bracha of Barech Alinu is not only about agriculture, right? It's also about parnasa, about livelihood in general, right? Agriculture is one example of a means to having our parnasa, but and that used to be one of the most common ways that people earned their living and got their food. But there's many other examples, right? And in this bracha, we're really davening that we should have a good parnasa. We should have a good livelihood. And that is obviously something that is very relevant to all of us. So let's look at the words, right? We say, Barech Alinu, Hashem Elokeinu, et hashana hazot. Right? Hashem should bless us this year. Vet komine tuata l'tova. And all of the different types of produce should be for good. The tein bracha, or tein tala matar levracha, depending on the season, you should give us bracha, or you should give us dew and rain for blessing. Al pnei ha'adama, on the face of the earth. V'sabeinu mituva, and we should be satiated from its goodness. Uvarech shnatinu kashanim hatovot, and you should bless our years like the good years. Baruch atah Hashem v'varech hashanim. Blessed are you, Hashem, who blesses the years. So the Yisod HaShoresh V'Avodah, which was written in the 1700s, he points out that this tefillah needs to be recited in a very heartfelt way, right? It should be very emotional, right? Even if somebody is wealthy and has everything that they need, we all know that these are things that can be switched around in a moment, right? And so he says, the way he writes it, he says, I'm translating, but he says, to my dear brothers and friends, if a person says this tefillah and asks for rain only with his lips and doesn't concentrate at all what he's asking for, certainly it is not considered a request for a tefillah before the one who is bochin klayot v'lev, who examines what's going on inside our heart. V'oy lo tovusha, and how deeply embarrassing this should be for all of us, right? We're coming to Hashem and we're asking him, please make sure that we have money for everything that we need. Please make sure that we could put food on the table. It's one of the most basic requests. And how many times do we stop to think what we're actually asking, right? We just run through it. He says, how can it be? We're asking, it's not even like we're saying some words, some esoteric words, and we don't understand what we're saying. We're asking for what we need. And yet, many of us, maybe not people in this room, but many people, right, can just say it without even thinking for a second, pausing to think what they're actually saying. And Hashem's looking at us and he's like, you're asking me to give you a parnasa, but you don't even hear the words that you're saying, so why would I listen, right? And it's the same thing really for many of the brachot are things that are really our basic needs, and somehow, even so, we manage to just kind of mumble through them. Yes, sorry. I was about to go over to you and ask you right before. I was going to ask you I really still want to hear your mother's connection to Tefilla, but now I forgot to even say her name. But it was in my head. So sorry. This shir, the entire series, is sponsored by Carol Goldberg for the neshama of her mother, Malka Sheva Bat Yitzchak Shalom. And thank you again. And I'm sorry I forgot to mention it, but it was totally there as I was saying it. But and I see you right in front of me, so it's like I'm thinking it, but everyone should know. Yes. Okay, so this bracha is a bracha that we need to really stop, think about. It's not a bracha on a general level, right? It's not we're not saying give rain to the entire country. We're actually asking, because again, this is the personal. Obviously, we can have it in mind and we care about the entire country, but it's actually a bracha for ourselves. Now, if there's global prosperity, it's going to impact on us. So obviously we want it, but in the end of the day, we're asking on a personal level. And we say Barech Alinu, right? Barech Alinu, right? Hashem should make it a blessing for us. And Rabbi Monk in the book Tefilla points out that there are some times when there can be blessing in the world, right? There can be, he talks about a Gemara in Sanhedrin where there was a time when there was lots of grapes, right? But they were so expensive that nobody could afford them. Right? So sometimes it doesn't matter that there's blessing in the world, but we want Barech Alinu. That blessing should come to us. With Tova, it should be for the good. What does that mean? Why are we asking it to be for the good?
Like I said, if there's a surplus and it's too expensive, then you can't buy it. So it doesn't help.
Also, right? But also sometimes we don't know what we need, right? We don't know how much is good for us. Sometimes if we have too much, it distracts us and it takes us away from our goal of serving Hashem. So we want to have enough that we can serve Hashem properly, and we don't want to have too much that's going to distract us, and we don't really know what that amount is. So it should be for good.
Rain has to be for bracha.
Good, right? Rain is like the mashal of all types of livelihood, right? But rain, we see very clearly, right, in a physical sense, that if it's too much, it's going to ruin everything. So if we have too much parnasa, it could be not good. V'sabenu mituva. And we should be satiated from its goodness. And the Siach Yitzchak says that we can learn from these words, it's not the pshat, but we can learn v'sabenu mituva, v'sabenu af b'miksat hatov, even from a little bit of the good. Right? We should be satiated even if we don't get as much as we thought we should and as much as we felt we needed. Whatever we're given, we should feel that sova, that satiation. We should feel satisfied with whatever it is that Hashem gives us. Right? Because without that ability to be able to be happy with what we have, so no matter how much Hashem showers onto us, we're just going to feel a lack. Right? So we want to be able to feel the sabinu mituva, that we feel full from whatever it is, whatever the amount is of the good that's in this world. And we ask Hashem, right, that our years should be blessed like the good years. And on a pshat level, it seems to mean, right, we want this year to be as successful as the most successful year that we ever had. Right? Think back to during that time, everything was amazing. We want it to be like that. But the Siach Yitzchak adds that also we're asking on a different level, right, that we should be on a spiritual level. No matter, like he says, right, a lot of times what happens is that when we have too much money, too much materialism, sometimes that distracts us from our spiritual role in the world. So he says that we ask Hashem, please give us the material, please give us all the financial comfort, but it should be that our years should still be like the best spiritual year we ever had. It shouldn't take away. Right? Sometimes in order to connect properly to Hashem, we need suffering, but we don't want to have suffering. So we're saying, remember that year when things were so hard that I dive into you every day from my heart, and when I said this bracha, I didn't skip over it because I really needed the money, right? So remember that year when I was so connected to you, Hashem? I want my spiritual year this year to be like that, but my physical year should be a little bit more comfortable. We want everything, right? And so but the most important thing really is stop, concentrate, Barech Alinu, Hashem, we just need food on the table. Please give it to us. Just that moment, that second of concentration changes the world. Okay. We are now at Tekah b'Shofar Gadol, which is so fitting. I feel like during this time period when we start with Yom Ha'atzmaut and now we just had Yom Yerushalayim, this is the tefillah, okay? Tekah b'shofar gadol, right? Sound the great shofar, l'cherutinu, for our freedom, v'sanes l'kabetz galiyotinu, and raise a banner to gather in all of the dispersed exiles, v'kabsenu yachad me'arba kanfot haaretz, and bring us all together, gather us together from all four corners of the world. Baruch atah Hashem mekabetz nidchei OUisrael. Blessed are you, Hashem, who gathers in the dispersed people of his nation of Israel. Okay, 100 years ago, there were only about 56,000 Jews living in Israel. And today, we're at, how many? 7 million, right?
A million people, I think. How many? Jews,
I think we're at 7 million.
in Jerusalem.
Okay, in Jerusalem, yes. Right, now we just celebrate Yom Yerushalayim, but somehow Yom Yerushalayim still gives us that feel of like, wow, we're all here, right? But in Israel, there are like 7 million Jews. And 100 years ago, there were 56,000, right? Which is like, when you think about it, like that's a crazy amount. Yeah, so, and we see it ourselves. We see Jews from all over the world are making Aliyah every year. And we're actually watching the ingathering of the exiles. We see it so clearly. And it's an amazing thing to be living at a time when the words of this tefillah of Tekah b'shofar gadol are in fact a reality. But it wasn't always the case, right? There were thousands of years after the second exile when there were a few handfuls of Jews living in Israel, and they were always persecuted. And it was almost impossible to really live here in Israel. And people would daven all the time from all around the world to come back to Israel. But it was like a dream. It's like one of those things you daven for, but like you don't really believe they're ever going to happen. It's just like, Hashem, can we please all come back to Israel? But like it can't be because it's such it's a country that people can't actually live in. It's not even possible. And the reform movement actually in the 1800s, right? They basically said this is an impossible dream. Why are we praying for this? It doesn't even make any sense. And they said it throughout history. If you look, you never see any nation ever go back to its homeland. It doesn't happen. And it's been thousands of years, and it's not going to happen. So we're not going to keep davening for something that's not reality. And they said even if somehow a Jewish state will be created, like most people are not going to live there because they're not going to be protected, and they'll just be persecuted. So like maybe there'll be a few 100,000 Jews that will live there, but it's not going to be a successful country. And so what did they do? They took out the words "V'kabsenu yachad me'arba kanfot haaretz" from this tefillah. Took it out. You could look in a Reform Siddur. They took it out. So when we say this tefillah, and we see it coming true before our eyes, right? We should realize the enormity of the fact that we're living a dream, right? Something that was so clear to everyone that it can't happen. Maybe not everyone agreed with the Reform movement to change the tefillah, but basically people understood that, yeah, like this is a far-fetched dream, right? And we're living it. We see it. It's like we say it and we're like, yeah, that makes sense, right? Because it's happening. And we need to ask Hashem to continue this process, right? We see it starting, we see people coming back, and we want to make sure that all of the people from all over the world are going to be brought back. Now, we mentioned in the beginning that this tefillah is like right in the middle. This bracha is right in the middle, and it's marking the transition. Everything until now was all the personal requests, and now we are getting to the communal requests. And we say, basically, right, we quoted Rabbi Monk, where he said basically that in this bracha, what we're doing is now we're like transitioning. We were individuals, and now we're asking Hashem to bring everyone together, kibbutz galiyot, bring us all together and form a nation. And once we're a nation, now we're ready to daven for our national needs. Okay, so let's look at the words inside. Tekah b'shofar gadol l'cherutinu. We begin by asking that the sound that says, "Sound the great shofar for our freedom." What shofar are we talking about? Mashiach. Is there going to be a shofar, right? So in Sefer Yeshayahu, right, it says, "V'haya b'yomahu yitakah b'shofar gadol." Right, on that day, beginning of the Geula, a great shofar will be blown. And it might be. There might be some huge, loud shofar that's going to be blown, and we'll hear it all over the entire world. But it also could be, Rabbi Shimon Schwab writes, right, it could be understood metaphorically that the same way that if we would hear a really loud noise, right, everyone in the world hears it, it's clear. So it's a proclamation, right? It's a time where the entire world is going to recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu in such a clear way. You know, there are things that like originally we would say like that sounds like it's not even possible. How could the entire world hear the same thing at the same time? But with technology, we know that everyone could get the same message at the same time. We all get sirens on our phone at the same time. We all, like things could happen. So it very might well be also literal, but it also just is like that clarity. Same thing. Visanis l'kabetz galutinu. Raise a banner to gather our exiles. Now it could be that there'll be some. I don't know what the banner would look like, but something that we can all see.
You saw yesterday. Yesterday, flag parade.
What did you say?
I said yesterday was a
Right.
flag parade.
So everyone can see the flag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So you're saying everyone could see the flags.
Yeah.
Right. There's a flag, right? People can see the flag, but how can someone see all over the entire world the same thing? I don't know, but the same way that we know that we could all hear the same thing, I'm sure there is a way, and we'll find out in the next technology. Something in the sky. Turn on your screen, and we'll all see something. I don't know, but it could be something that we'll all see. But it also is understood metaphorically, right? That's something that if everyone can see something so high in the sky, we can all see it. So that means that there's this clarity that the entire world is recognizing Hashem with such clarity. And we say that we should be gathered here not only physically to Israel, but we should be brought together. We should have unity, achdut, right? The most important thing. And it's not enough for us all to live. Okay, great, we're all now in the same country. But if we're all fighting, so we didn't fulfill this bracha yet. So there's two parts to the bracha. We want everyone to be here, which didn't happen yet. We see the process and we see that it's going somewhere. But we want everyone here, and we want us all to be the kapsinu yachad, that we're all living together with unity. And finally, Baruch atah Hashem mekabetz ninchei OUisrael. Rashi has a beautiful Rashi in Dvarim. He talks about the Geula, and he says, Gadol yom kibbutz galuyot, how great the day of the ingathering of the exiles will be, uvekoshi, and how difficult it will be. Ki ilu hu atzmo tzarich liot ochez biyadav. It's as if Hashem himself has to hold the hands, mamash, literally ish mimkomo, of every single person. Right? Hashem, it's not like snaps his finger and everyone comes in. We all know, we all have our personal aliyah stories, and people coming from all other kinds of countries, right? We have our, Western world aliyah stories, but people that come from Ethiopia and wherever they're coming from, France, Iran, I don't know, wherever they're coming from, right? Every person has to have Hashem hold their hand and bring them to Israel. Make the circumstances work out that they're able to get here. Right? It's an amazing thing. Because it's like, we think about, right, Hashem, this like all-encompassing being, is looking out for every individual and figuring out a way to get them over here. Yesterday, Rabbi Avi Berman, the head of the OUisrael, we had like a brunch for Yom Yerushalayim, and he mentioned, he said, if you think about it, like, it's a funny thing he said, but he said, like, we always talk about Yetziat Mitzrayim, right? Hashem brought a nation out of Egypt to Israel, but he said, okay, like, that's not such a big deal. Don't take that out of context. Right? He said, okay, so, he took a nation that all lived in one little country of how many people? 600,000 people, whatever it was, right? And they all spoke the same language, and they all didn't want to be there. And he took them to a country that was in walking distance. Right? And that's we keep talking about that, but think about right now the Geula process of bringing millions and millions of Jews from all over the world with all different languages and all different cultures and all, right? And getting them over here, and they're all, far away, different places, and getting them all over here. It's that much more, right? And it's happening, and we're watching it. So it's an amazing thing. And when we say this tefillah, we really need to think about this amazing thing that we are living it, right? For so many years, people davened it, they wanted it, they didn't know when or how, if it could ever happen. Some people took it out of their tefillah, and we actually are watching it happen, and we're part of it. And that's amazing. But we want to continue to daven that it should continue to happen. And we still know many, 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 many people that do not live here yet, and that Hashem should hold their hands and find the ways to bring them back and to bring us back in unity. Okay, so that is Tekav Shofar. Okay, so now, as we said, we're moving into our national requests, and we start with Hashiva Shoftinu. Right, I didn't skip any tefillah, right? Next one. Hashiva Shofteinu Kvar Rishona. Okay. So in here we're going to talk about the leadership. And if you had to make a checklist of the things you need to buy for a newly ordained king, right, what would you put on your list?
For newly ordained king?
Yes. A crown, right? He needs a crown. What else does he need?
A robe.
Ah, you're jumping. A robe, a scepter, a throne, castle. I don't know, right? He needs a palace, right? He needs a bunch of things, but you probably, unless you're you, wouldn't put a Sefer Torah on the list, right? But the Torah, right, says no. We need to have a Sefer Torah. We see that in Sefer Dvarim, and the Rambam writes in Hilchot Melachim that not only does the king need to write a Sefer Torah, he has to carry a Sefer Torah with him everywhere he goes. It's pretty heavy. Right? He's got to carry the Sefer Torah with him wherever he goes. Why? Because he needs a guide. He needs a leadership manual. He needs to take it with him. He can't just sit there in the corner. He needs it as he's going out, dealing with all the issues that come up. He needs to have his guide with him.
It also reminds him all the time
what he's doing. Yes. Right? And every given moment, he needs to make sure that, right, if he needs guidance, he's not sure what to do, he pulls out his Sefer Torah. And, right, we know that in the past, when there was any kind of uncertainty, what would they do? Should they go to war? Should they make a treaty with the enemy? We see in Tanakh, what do? They ask the Navi, they go to the Urim and Tumim, right? They had a way of getting clarity for these big questions, right? And that seems to be something that's beyond, right? Maybe this will be, the same way that I talked about Tekav Shofar, where we're they were it's very nice, but we can't happen. So we're how does this happen, right? It doesn't seem something that we would ever be able to have, right? We're very happy to live in a Jewish country with a Jewish government, but we all know that it's not every decision is being based on the Torah. And in Tehillim, David HaMelech writes, Lecha amar libi, bakshu panai et panecha Hashem avakesh. This is from the David Hashem Ori Vishi. There's one pasuk that's stuck in the middle there, right? That it's hard to understand the pasuk, right? We say, Lecha amar libi, to you, or on your behalf, amar libi, my heart says, bakshu panai, seek my presence, et panecha Hashem avakesh. Your face, I am requesting, I'm seeking. It's a little bit of it's you get to that pasuk and you're who's talking? What's happening, right? So the Meiri explains it in a very beautiful way, and he says that David HaMelech, right, is king, and he says, I'm the king, right? I'm the king of Israel, and so what do I need to do? I need to set up a system where the people are going to be in awe of me. Why?
because he's the king.
Because he's the king, and therefore what? Right? And therefore, right? They'll follow me, right? Okay, I need to set up a system where I'm going to be the king. People respect me. They're seeking me out. They pay me respect. But he says, but don't think for a second that I'm doing it for my own ego. Why am I doing it? What's my goal? Lecha, for you, Hashem. So he says, Lecha amar li, Lecha, for your sake, Hashem. Amar libi, I said in my heart. Bakshu panai. I need to make sure the people are bakshu panai. Me, David HaMelech. I need to make sure people are requesting to be with me. They want to see me. They want to pay respect to me, right? Right. That's why the pasuk switches in the middle. Lecha, for you, Hashem. Amar libi, I said in my heart, bakshu panai. I need to make sure the people are bakshu my face. Why? In order that I can bring them to et panecha Hashem avakesh, because I want to bring them to the point where, because I'm representing Hashem, then they're going to be not just bakshu panai. They're actually going to be seeking your face at panecha Hashem avakesh. Then they're going to get to the point where they are saying, I want to now seek out Hashem. Right? This is the purpose of David HaMelech's leadership, right? He wants to bring the people closer to Hashem. So even though he needs to do it by all the pomp and splendor that we know that a kingship comes with, but he does that in order to then bring them closer to Hashem. Right? So that's an amazing thing. Can you imagine a leadership where that's the leader's goal? His goal is to just bring the people closer to Hashem. And that's what we're davening for in Hashiva Shoftinu. The Avudraham says that just like in the first 6 requests, we broke it down, that they were personal. We broke it down, the first half was spiritual and the second half was physical. So now that we got to the second part of the requests, which are all community-based, right? Those are also, the first 3 are going to be spiritual and the second 3 are going to be physical. And so Hashiva Shoftenu is parallel to what? I'll give you a hint. It has a similar word. No, you're right. In the terms of the chronology, it would make sense, right? But right, Hashivenu, right? We said we do last week or the week before. We did Hashivenu Avinu, right? Where we said that was our spiritual GPS. Hashem, bring us back towards our goal. Remind us that we're here to serve you, right? And that was on a personal level. Our personal spiritual request was Hashem, Hashivenu Avinu Torah, bring us back to you, to your Torah. And now on a national level, we're saying the same thing, right? We say Hashiva Shoftinu Kvarishona, bring our national leadership back to what it was in the beginning. We also need this national redirecting, right, of the GPS saying, okay, remind us again what we're here for as a nation. What are we trying to do? What is our goal? Bring us back to where we're supposed to be. So we say, Hashiva Shoftinu Kvarishona, restore our judges as at first, V'yotzenu Kvatchila, and our advisors as they were at the beginning. V'aser mimenu yagun v'anacha, remove from us sorrow and sighing. U'meloch alinu, and rule over us, Ata Hashem levadcha, you Hashem on your alone. V'chesed v'rachamim, with kindness and mercy. V'tzadkenu b'mishpat, and righteousness and justice. Baruch Ata Hashem melech ohev tzedakah v'mishpat. Blessed are you Hashem, the King who loves righteousness and justice. So here we're emphasizing this desire to go back to the beginning, right? To recalculate and bring us back to our starting point, so we can retrace our steps and begin again navigating towards the correct destination. And we go from there, right? This Hashiva Shoftim, we go to Haser Mimenu Yagom V'Anacha, remove sorrow from us. Why? Because clarity is the diametric opposite of sorrow and despair. Right? When things are confusing and we don't know where we're going, that's when we feel the sense of despair. But as soon as we get into the right direction, we know Hashem is bringing us somewhere. So all of our sorrow kind of falls to the wayside, right? There might be some things that are, going on, setbacks, suffering, but as long as we know long-term we're headed in the right direction, we can handle those things. And so we then daven that Hashem, our nation be led solely by Hashem, right? We said, Ata levadcha, right? Ata Hashem levadcha, right? Hashem should really be the one who's leading us, but we're not going to get rid of human leaders, right? The human leaders have a purpose, right? They are the emissaries of Hashem. But it should be very clear that this is really, they're the emissaries of Hashem. Really, Hashem is the one who's leading us. And everything they decide should be very clearly being based on the Torah and its teachings. And that what their driving goal should be to bring us back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A lot of this seems very far off. It's not where we're at right now. But hopefully, one step at a time, we'll get there. B'ezrat Hashem. Okay, so. A lot of kavanah in this bracha. Yes, and in all of them, really. But, okay, so again, this week we're going to focus on, where did we start with? We started with Barei Chalinu. We're still in our personal requests, our physical request, asking Hashem for sustenance, for parnasa, but asking Hashem, like we actually realize what we're asking Hashem for. We really mean it. And then we went from there to the national request. We started with Tekavah Shofar, this ingathering of the exiles, and really recognizing the amazing fact that we're living this dream and Hashem should continue and we should have unity. And from there to Hashiva Shoftinu, really asking for how to have the kind of leadership that's really leading us to where we need to get to.